Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and in this video I'm going to bring you a pair of games from the AMX ELC Bis. This is the tier 5 French light tank and one of the most fun tanks in the game if you ask me. Now the two games are going to be rather different. The first one here is being played by yours truly. And I'm platooned up with Careless One in his KV2. You may well have seen Careless One in one or two other videos that I have put up. It's sort of someone I occasionally platoon with, and it's usually good for a laugh. This is a tier 7 game, so we are kind of mid-tier, of course, remembering, although Careless One is in a tier 6, because I'm in a tier 5 light tank, I basically get match made as if I'm a tier 6 tank. Now, unfortunately, my spotting that I'm trying to do here would probably be rather better if that Type 64 wasn't there, but, you know, them's the breaks, what you gonna do? Part of me was hoping he would get eliminated fairly quickly, and it looks like my wish may come true. It might sound really harsh, but, you know, he's getting valuable spotting damage there. I want it, damn it. Anyway, I'm doing a bit of passive spotting. We're here on Malinovka, the map, of course. Which is one of those maps still in the game where you can effectively passive scout. Now, although I'm platooned up with Careless One, we're not going to see too much of him this game as he trundles off along with the, you know, going sort of where the heavy tanks and medium tanks typically go on this map, up toward the hill. I, meanwhile, am doing some scouting from me bush, and I'll be honest, a good chunk of this game, or at least a good chunk of the early part of this game, is going to be me sitting in the bush with my binos up, getting me spots. ELC is a very weird little machine for anyone who hasn't played it. There's nothing else quite like it in the game. It's kind of like, how to describe it? It's like a strange cross between a light tank and a tank destroyer. It is a lot of fun. It's a very punchy 90mm gun, considering it's a tier 5 light tank, though that 90mm gun does have pretty atrocious gun handling. And if I remember, I don't have Sixth Sense on this commander, because of course the first time I played this tank, the crew got moved up to higher and higher tier French light tanks, and I subsequently bought a new crew for this tank. T67 just got himself eliminated, and I'm pretty sure that all or most of this now is my assistance damage, as the Type 64 vacated his position and actually got himself killed. Now, passive spotting is kind of, I don't want to say it's died, but it's fallen out of favour as the game has progressed and the maps have changed, and often a lot of the cover, the bushes, the concealment tends to have been removed, and many of the sniping positions, I guess many of the sniping positions have been nerfed, and artillery has been heavily nerfed, and so the sort of machines that would typically provide your supporting fire while you're doing this sort of spotting are not as effective as they once were, combined with the fact that many of the positions from which you would do this sort of spotting have been removed, nerfed, one way or the other, and so actually you don't see much passive scouting anymore, but you can still do it from time to time, and this was how I first learnt my scouting trade, if you will, by trying to make myself useful with some binos in a light tank, you know, in a tier 4 light tank in a tier 8 game, as it used to be back in the good old days. I say the good old days. I might be slightly exaggerating there. AMX 12T is going on a hero run now, given the stealthy nature of the ELC, and it is very stealthy. In fact, I even put up a video demonstrating how stealthy some time ago. Given the stealthy nature of the ELC, although I don't have Sixth Sense there, I wasn't really concerned about being spotted by that 12T. I was pretty sure that I was safe. And eventually the 12T died. Anyway, scoreline is, of course, 6 kills to 5 in favour of our team, and Careless managed to pick up a kill on the T20, although ultimately, unfortunately, he died to the enemy T29. So I no longer have my platoon mate, which is a little bit of a shame. These things happen sometimes. Trying to get some fire in on some of these tank destroyers. The SG-152 has a big scary gun, but is relatively squishy, so shooting at him would be nice. The AT-15, on the other hand, or the AT-15A I should say, is kind of tough, but the gun is sort of weedy, especially for a tank destroyer, so less of a priority target, in my opinion. Though, he is slowly trundling just straight across the map toward us, which is a cause for concern. If he gets too close, of course, I'm going to have to bug out, and as I don't have Sixth Sense, I decide that, well, let's bug out sooner rather than later. I don't want to be caught on the hop and have a bad day. So, having been the spotter, ooh, it looks like I've been spotted because people are shooting at me. I'm now going to mix it up a little bit. I've got a fairly powerful gun. Even in a tier 7 match, even in a tier 8 match, the gun is pretty good. 240 alpha damage, 170 penetration with armor piercing ammo. With APCR, that penetration jumps up to 240 or something. Where's the pen with APCR? 248, there we go. Which is pretty typical of all these American or Japanese or French 90mm guns. They're all pretty similar. And so I'm instead just gonna do basically a little bit of sniping with it. Now, the gun, I mentioned it has terrible aiming stats, which it does. So you really want to let this gun fully aim. You do not want to be taking shots without doing so. And I'm waiting for this AT-15A to give me a shot into his side because I did not rate my chances of penetrating him frontally. Now, the ELC is actually one of the reasons. So for those who don't know, I used to be a really big fan of the old Chaffee. Ooh, side shots into the AT-15A. I used to be a really big fan of the old Chaffee before they changed it. There we go, there's some damage. Since they changed it, I don't like it anymore. It's very different. I will rebuy it at some point to see if my opinion has actually changed. So for me, a lot of people say, well, the T-37 is very similar. I sincerely disagree with that. I think the T-37, as far as light tanks go, is almost as far removed from the old Chaffee as you can get. I would say the T-21, the other Tier 6 American light tank, is far more the spiritual successor to the Chaffee. The old Chaffee, that is. So I keep the T-21, and if I want to play a Tier 5 light tank, I just jump in the ELC. It's a huge bundle of fun. I mean, when I first played this tank, I wasn't particularly good at it. But since then, I've had far more experience with light tanks and whatnot, and I seem to perform much better in it now than I ever used to. So those of you who might have gone past this tank going up the French line, trying to get the Batchat 25 ton or anything like that, I do recommend coming back to this as a more experienced player. I do think it is well worth doing. So I did say at the beginning of the game that a lot of this game was basically going to be fairly boring. Oh, boring is perhaps the wrong word, but static, passive. I'm trying to use bush locations and my binocular telescopes to get vision for my team, and occasionally use that pretty sweet gun actually to put damage into the bad guys on behalf of my team. Now, the other thing, of course, that's odd about the ELC is that although it gets a turret, it's not a fully rotating turret. So if you actually look, it has it's a tank destroyer style gun arc. So that's why I say it's kind of like a light tank destroyer hybrid. It's a bit like the E25 in principle. It's quite a fast mobile machine with pretty terrible armor, and in its own way, a fairly neat gun. Of course, the ELC gets scout matchmaking, which is pretty harsh, and the E25 gets regular. Well, not even regular, it gets preferential matchmaking. So the two aren't the same, but I hope you see my general idea of what I'm trying to convey. Black Prince over there, just seeing if I could pop up to take a shot on him, but I really don't want to risk getting shot in return. The ELC only has 400 health to work with. One shot from the T25 AT would leave me on about 80 health, and the Black Prince would be able to finish me off, or indeed vice versa. Black Prince gives me the side of his turret, and there we go, there's kill number 1. So again, just pulled back. I really don't want to become the centre of attention. Wait for the gun to reload. The reload on this gun is quite long, you know, of the order of 10 seconds. But that's what you get for having the highest alpha on a tier 5 light tank, I guess. T25AT has backed off, but he is a one-shot for me now, of course. though if the shot for whatever reason flubs, I could be in trouble. So still trying to see if I can get any vision for my team. We know the Hellcat and the T-25AT were both last spotted over in the sort of D6 region, and the Achilles and the Su-152 are both over in H1. So I clearly am not going to be able to spot the Hellcat or the T-25, which is slightly sad. Speaking of the Hellcat, there he is. Now we did just lose our Crusader, which is, well, slightly unfortunate, but not a massive blow to the team, given the, I think, you know, the Crusader is a tier 5, technically light tank, but it's, to all intents and purposes, is a tier 5 medium tank, so in a tier 7 game, it's not the most useful machine for the team. So I decide to reposition. I'm pondering what to do about those people up in H1. As it is, the Achilles appears to be going for a little stroll across the map. So I've been contemplating doing something about them, as I really wasn't achieving a great deal of much where I was. Maybe I stayed there a little too long, if I'm going to be honest, but there we go. So we've seen the Achilles. I've also seen the Su-152, but there's very little of this guy to actually shoot at. Panzer IV's, Shadowhunter 12 is his name, takes out the Achilles. I take a punt at the Su-152, but no dice. And he actually obliterates poor Shadowhunter there. Now, the Su-152 is of course a one-shot for me, so I reckon I can go over there and execute him without taking any damage in return. We'll see if I'm right. Now, of course, without the fully rotating turret, your playstyle with the ELC has to be different to your playstyle with most light tanks. You cannot circle people to death. You physically can't do it. So you have to kind of play more hit and run, and there's the Su-152, and whoops. Whoops-a-daisy. Well, I got the kill, but kind of accidentally belly flopped the guy. So, yeah, we'll run with it. 2 minutes 50 of this match left, so we really need to get a move on if our team is to pull something out of the bag here. Hellcat and T-25AT, of course, remaining. I'm making my way over toward the cap on the basis that that will hopefully pull the enemy tanks out of position. The T-25AT, I know, is essentially a one-shot. Knocking down that tree was a bit of a mistake. The Hellcat, I'm not sure of. We'll see. You can see there in chat I say, whoops, I didn't mean to knock over that tree. So I'm hoping that this will encourage the enemy tank destroyers to come back to their base, and that in doing so I can get off the first ambush shot, and of course against that T-25AT in particular. I know what health he was on, so that first shot should secure the kill for me. E-25 is also rushing toward me in the capture circle, and the AMX is in a position to do some shooting himself. Now, of course, the problem becomes if I am reset for any reason, we're soon going to get to the point where... Oh, hello, Mr. T-25. He's looking at me, he's looking at me. I cannot afford to aim, and I get really lucky there. That was incredibly jammy, I will be honest. I was going to say the problem, of course, lies in, well, if I do get reset, then we're going to struggle for time to cap, and the enemy might be able to bore this out to a draw. As it is, between them, the E-25 and the AMX M445 are able to take out that Hellcat, and that's the game. And I, as I said, I will hold my hands up and say that against that T-25AT at the end, I was really rather jammy. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the results for this one. So, as it turned out, that was enough to pick up an Ace Tanker, Spotter, Fire for Effect, Scout, Patrol Duty, and an Orlix medal, which is a medal you don't see that often. It's for getting, is it 2 or 3? Can't remember. I think it's 3 kills in a light tank, and the kills must be 2 tiers higher than you. Turns out, despite that Type 64's efforts, we were able to be the ones doing all that spotting and getting all that assistance damage, which is nice. If we have a look at the tanks we managed to damage, you can see that the blind shot I took against that AT-15A did actually hit home, so that's a little bit more damage for us. Finished second on our team overall with 851 damage done, 3 kills and 1,158 base experience. Well done to the AMX M445, over 3,000 damage and over 1,200 base experience in that, in my opinion, ghastly travesty of a machine is pretty good going. 6 shots fired, 5 hits, 5 pens for that damage count, 10 enemy vehicles spotted, 4 of them damaged, 3 of them destroyed, and 2,500 assistance damage, and 73 base capture points into the bargain. Travelled 4 kilometers, we were running a premium account at the time, so that was a 34,000 credit profit because assistance damage prints credits, and a nice amount of experience into the bargain as well, to go toward my commander eventually getting 6th sense at some point in the future. So, there we go. I do actually have another replay to show you, don't I? So let's go and have a quick look at that. Here is the promised second ELC outing, this time courtesy of Darkstar984, who is playing with a clanmate in a platoon, HG Lucky. Both of them are in ELCs. Now this matchmaking is rather more favourable than I had in my game. This is a tier 6 maximum game. So we've got, you know, Churchills and KV-85s and OIs being the scariest things that you'll come across. Not to say that they're not scary, but they're not quite, you know, the same sort of level of scary as a T-29 or something like that. Or, you know, an IS-3 and whatnot, which an ELC can come across. Straight away, Darkstar is coming up to be pretty aggressive in his ELC, and they come across the enemy ELC. I imagine this game is most likely on the EU server because Ronnie O'Sullivan has just been killed. Darkstar managing to pick up the kill for that. Now, interestingly, they've only come across a single light tank so far, and there doesn't really seem to be any fire coming in the general direction of this ELC platoon, indicating that perhaps the enemy team have been quite light with the tanks they sent over here. Never mind, there we go, there's all the bad guys. What have we got? SU-100Y, woohoo, that was close. SU-100Y, KV-2, Excelsior, Churchill 7. There's a Stug, there's a KV-85. So okay, there are plenty of enemy tanks over here. So now comes the question, Darkstar, what are you going to do about it? And it would appear that the answer is he's going to shoot stuff. Now, I mentioned that this thing gets quite a punchy gun, 170 penetration. Oh, that was lucky. 170 penetration at on a tier 5 machine is more than many tier 7 heavy tanks get access to. Goodbye. Sorry, more than many tier 6 heavy tanks get access to. I apologise. And there goes the Excelsior for kill number 2. Coming around, Churchill 7 is over there. And of course there's people in the town. Now you want to be careful about tangling in the town too much. Of course you are still in a light tank, and as it turns out the Churchill actually manages to nail Darkstar's platoon mate, so HG Lucky has gone down, which is a little bit unfortunate. Nonetheless, Darkstar is coming up here. Is he going to go for the Churchill or the artillery? There we go, a shot into the Churchill. But he doesn't hang around, he keeps moving. Mobility and size are his main defense here. His armor is pretty pitiful. Coming up to see if he can come around the rear of this poor ponderous Churchill. And there we go. That leaves the Churchill. Ooh, a one shot about 50% of the time. But Churchill chasing an ELC is never going to end well for the Churchill. I mean, let's be honest here. And Darkstar takes his time and leaves the guy on 7 health. Well, you know, it wasn't that unlucky. The HP of the Churchill was slightly above Darkstar's average damage with this gun, so let's not be too critical. Nonetheless, I should point out he's done all of this engagement so far without losing a single hit point. And this is really how you have to play the ELC. It's not a traditional light tank. If you're going to do the close range fisticuffs, it has to be more of a hit and run machine, and using its dinky size and exceptional mobility to not get hit in return, but you don't have the luxury of being able to, oh that was unlucky, being able to circle people to death. Like I said, gets unlucky against the Churchill, who appears to not appreciate the fact that just turning his turret is not going to be sufficient to escape, and there we go, there's Darkstar's third kill. However, the friendly team that is, are losing, so there are plenty more bad guys to eliminate. Artillery has been spotted. We've got one artillery has already been taken out. That is the M37, but we've still got an M41 HMC and a Lefebvre B2. Still can't pronounce that thing. Leffy 18B2 or something. M41 should be a fairly reliable one-shot for this gun. There we go. And that just leaves the Lefebvre. Whatever. The French thing that should be German. That one. Now, he doesn't appear to be around here per se, so Darkstar is just going to go looking. SU-100 has managed to win the other flank, essentially. So SU-100Y, and is pushing around, but now, with the loss of that SU-85B, it is just this SU-100Y, 2 artillery, and Darkstar in his ELC here, versus Lux, an artillery piece, an SU-100Y, a Panzerforce Schmolterm, an OI, and a KV-85. Now, perhaps the worst thing the SU-100Y could do at this point is to sit in the capture circle. That will just announce to anybody who wishes to pay attention where he is, and then the enemy team can come at him, outnumber him, and kill him in pretty short order. So of course, exactly what the guy does is drive into the capture circle. A lot of people complain that people don't cap when they should, and lose games as a result. Well, that is true. There are many people who are like that, but there are also plenty of people who lose games by capping when they shouldn't. And yes, that does lose you games. So, there we go. Darkstar is of course here coming over to try and defend the friendly base. Low health SU-100Y gets taken out by the M44 artillery piece. Panzer IV-S is also on low health. Darkstar might be able to nobble him. He has to be a little bit careful about being shot by any of that Panzer IV-S's allies in the process, and does find an OI as well, and there's a KV-85 on the move. Shotgun like a boss. Kill number 5. Friendly team have just lost one of their artillery pieces, their own Lefebvre. Leffy 18B2. And Darkstar goes for a shot on that Panzer IV-S, but it's on the move, it's a long way away, and this gun could at best be described as a shotgun. However, close range, there we go. The Panzer manages to put one shot in, but Darkstar manages to finish the guy off, and the Lux casually ignores him, which I do not understand. Finally turns his attention to Darkstar's ELC, and manages to fail to do any damage. And now we have a strange little situation where the Lux should probably have done a lot more than that. As it is, never mind. Darkstar polishes off the Panzer II Lux, and that's his 7th kill. The enemy team still have that French artillery piece and an OI remaining. So, first is of course Darkstar's brutal little ELC and a friendly M44 artillery piece. But, you know, a light tank's work is never done. Hold down the W key and find the bad guys. ELC is of course a fast little machine, as well as being very low profile. Apologies about that, and an absolute bugger to hit. There is the artillery, and trying not to get hit by this guy. This guy has a relatively low caliber gun for a tier 5 artillery piece, but we still don't want to get hit by him if it's at all possible. J Highway, as it is, gets taken out with a nice little shotgun shell on the move from Darkstar here. Now you may look at it and go, why is he taking so many shots on the move? Well, if he stops moving, the enemy team will kill him, that's why. So, yeah, and understandably his hands are shaking by his own admission. Trying to find the OI here. Now, the OI has 150mm of frontal armour, which is a bit of a pain. As it is, the artillery manages to put one shell in, and Darkstar loads some APCR here. If he can land one APCR round, it shouldn't have too much problems with its basically 250mm of penetration going through the front of his tank. And I really want to highlight this. It's really good to see Darkstar 984 has taken it upon the time to say good game to both teams either way, regardless of how this game ends. As it is, it ends in Darkstar's favour. So let's go and have a look at those results. So Darkstar played that game very well and was a gentleman in chat, and I always like to see people who are nice doing well. Ace Tanker, Duelist, Fire for Effect, High Caliber Top Gun, and a Radley Walters medal. 1 kill off of a Pools medal in his ELC. Yeah, who says light tanks can't carry games? 2,417 damage done, 9 kills, 1,618 base experience, easily outstripping anyone on either team. Absolutely stonking great result. 16 shots fired, 15 hits, 14 pens for that damage count. 3 hits received, 1 didn't penetrate, bearing in mind that was from the looks. Sorry, 2 didn't penetrate, bearing in mind they were both from the looks. 8 enemy vehicles spotted, 9 damage, 9 killed, about 780 assistance damage, almost 7 kilometers travelled, 25,000 credits. 25,000 credits profit with a standard account that would have been over 43k with a premium account, and a nice amount of experience to boot, making my ELC game look positively pathetic by comparison. So there we go, a couple of outings in the French Tier 5 light tank, the ELC. If you've not played it, I thoroughly recommend it, it's a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that replay, or those replays. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos, and or subscribe to my channel, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.